Right now, we are going into my personal favorite segment of the podcast, and that is, of course, Network and Chill, where we on the Go Home Show podcast decide to have a look at some of the best stuff on the WWE Network and give you our thoughts on it. And this week, we decided to go through and look at the recent documentary called Brothers of Destruction. Obviously, going off of the great tag team of Isaac Yankem and Mean Mark Calloway, because they never did anything else after that. No, of course, it's Undertaker and Kane. In this Undertaker-filled documentary year, it's been incredibly insightful, and to see them focus on one of my favorite storylines or one of my favorite tag teams growing up as a kid. I think it transcends wrestling. It's just great storytelling. They created this really good sit-down documentary between both of them, and I really enjoyed it. I really, really liked it. I thought it was a nice, sweet 46 minutes that went through their whole career, which has been spanning on from 1997, when Kane debuted at Bad Blood, in the first ever Hell in a Cell match, which, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, was the best Hell in a Cell match other than Mankind versus Taker. But nevertheless, I want to know what the rest of the panel think. Crush, you're probably the biggest Undertaker stan that I know. What did you think of the documentary?
Yeah, as you say, it's 47 minutes of goodness. Like, we got a preview, which Chris reviewed over on SPORF.com. Chris is now a capital J journalist, so go check that out. But yeah, it's a really, really good documentary. Like, it's just them two sitting and talking, like two old friends catching up and just shooting the shit, as Chris put in his review. I really enjoyed it. Like, I can't really remember the early days of Kane before he was Kane. So like the Dr. Isaac Yankem stuff was quite interesting to me. But then to hear Taker opening up about the streak as well and saying how he thought that Roman should have ended it, but it's Vince's call, so he just went with it. But yeah, overall, it's amazing. And the 30 Days of Dead Man have been good so far. Obviously, we had the Legend Killer and the Phenom as well earlier in the month. So yeah, go check it out because it flies by and you learn so much from it.
I think that's probably the main takeaway from this documentary is you learn so much. There's those little tidbits, and that's probably the reason why we all have a WWE Network account, other than obviously the pay-per-views and the actual TV shows. But those little bits of insider knowledge that you don't know about and or have never been really fully confirmed by the people within the WWE. Chris, seeing as you got an early copy, were there any like tidbits, any little stories that you were thinking, "Ooh, this is quite interesting," that stand out to you?
So the one for me, and I said this in the review at SPORF.com by your favorite journalist, was so I've said it frequently is that I never really believed the Undertaker's retiring now. Now that doesn't mean necessarily that Survivor Series is going to be the end of the Undertaker. It wouldn't shock me if we get a run through till Mania because what better way to go out? But this is the first time that I really thought that I could actually see the end for the Undertaker. I said it after the Legend of the Phenom documentary that you could just see how much he loved wrestling. And this was almost, you can still see the love for wrestling, but I think he starts to realize that he can't just keep doing it. Like, that's just not how, like, time is going to catch up with him. And he can't just pretend that it doesn't exist. And it's when they're talking about the Saudi Arabia match where it's Brothers of Destruction versus DX. And they were talking about, like, this is going to be so easy because we're all at least a little bit talented and we've got so much experience. Yes, we're a bit older now. But for what we need to do, we can just walk through this and it'll be awesome. And as we're all aware, it was perhaps not awesome. And that was when they were chatting about it then, you could hear from both of them that there is a level where at a certain point, experience and talent isn't just going to carry you through it. And then he's talking about the Roman match, where he's like, I just shouldn't have been in the ring. I couldn't train. I couldn't move. I just couldn't do it. And it's the way he's talking about it, where I was like, I think he might actually be done. It wouldn't shock me if we got one last tombstone at WrestleMania, or we get one little feud with The Fiend where we get a cinematic match or something like that. But I think all in all, I think this is the end of The Undertaker. And actually, if this is going to be the end of it, whether we get one more little run or if it was the graveyard match at the last WrestleMania is the end of it, I think he's done a good job of kind of re-securing a legacy that should never have been in question. But the Roman match and the Saudi Arabia match and the Goldberg match did make you go, oh, just go away now, please. Whereas this actually feels like a farewell, and I'm enjoying the farewell.
I have to agree with you. It does kind of like recertify his legacy because the last few years, I mean, apart from the amazing match against AJ Styles at WrestleMania, it has been quite disappointing to watch Taker because obviously he is getting older. He isn't. He doesn't have the body of 20 years ago. He doesn't have the speed, and you can tell the dude works really hard. But there's just only so many things you can do after being a wrestler for 30 years or so. But the legacy of the Brothers of Destruction is something, as they mentioned in it, as I mentioned before, it kind of transcends wrestling. It's like the ultimate kind of little kid storyline that you say, oh, this is Undertaker's brother, and he's coming to fight him and send him to hell and all that sort of stuff. Will, seeing as you're a little bit older than myself, what did you think of the general legacy of the Brothers of Destruction? Because you were there a bit more towards the end of the Attitude Era, so you kind of saw them do their separate things with Be Together, all that malarkey. What did you think of them?
Yes, I am older than all of you. One thing before I get into it, I've always thought it was funny, like, when Kane reveals himself as the Mask, and obviously it's him, and then on commentary, all he's got is a bit of makeup on, and they're like, that's disgusting. Oh, look at it. That's horrible. Which I know they've got to do, but it's like, it's just Isaac Yankem. But no, I thought it was really sort of sweet in a way that even at like the late 50s, nearly early 60s, whatever, that Kane just looked like so childlike and just so grateful for the Undertaker and all that he's done for him, even in that like later stage of life where if you had an ego, you'd sort of obviously think it was all your own work, but he was just so grateful for what the Undertaker had done. And even going into those early stages where I think, what was it, OVW or something like South, I don't know, it was something like that, where Kane was originally training, and you saw that insight where Undertaker almost like handpicked Kane from an early stage, and even when he was doing those early gimmicks was always sort of giving him advice. And I don't know, they were sort of the Brothers of Destruction before they were the Brothers of Destruction. I got that sort of sense of feeling from the documentary.
Exactly. Some incredible insight on this documentary, everybody. You should give this a watch. We all recommend it. It's one of the best things about Undertaker in a year, as I say, has been so full of Undertaker on the WWE Network. Make sure to go check it out right now. And also go and check out Chris's review over on SPORF.com, because he is a capital J journalist, and you need to respect all of us here on the Go Home Show podcast.